Hello everyone, this is Margarita with CityGal Papeterie. Welcome to my channel. I'm so happy you tuned in. If you love greeting cards as much as I do, you probably have a lot of them saved. So I hope that you enjoy this tutorial where we'll make an album where you can store your greeting cards. The supplies that we're going to need, this is going to be a two-part tutorial. This is just going to cover the outside of the album, and the supplies would be to 8.5 by 11 cardstock, 80 or 110 pound preferred, to 8.5 by 11 or 12 by 12 pattern paper for your outer design, to 8.5 by 11 or 12 by 12 pattern paper for your inside design, a piece of 5 3/4 by 6-inch cardstock for your page hinges, any adhesive of your choice, scissors, a scoreboard, which is optional. You can use your a ruler for that, paper trimmer or ruler, and then your choice of bone folder, scoring tool, or a retractable pen, and then a 16-inch ribbon for closing your album. We're going to begin by measuring the largest card that I have in my bunch, which is 5.5 by 8 1/4. This is probably like one of the larger sizes of greeting cards you get at the drugstore, and it should be an adequate size for your album. I'm going to be using an 80-pound sheet of cardstock, and I'm cutting it down. It's just a little bit bigger than that large greeting card. And we're going to need 2 of those. The pieces that you have left, you want to save because you're going to use that for the spine of your album. As you can see there, the card fits nicely in that cover. We're going to repeat that one more time for the back. And once again, it's 6 inches by 8.5. And so you will have 2 5 by 8.5 pieces left. Definitely going to keep them because we are going to use them. So this is going to be our front and back cover of our album, and you can see all my cards fit nicely in there. I'm trying to figure out my width, my spine width, and it's going to be 1 1/4 inch, and it should hold all of those cards that I have there. Now I grab one of those pieces that we had left over when we cut our covers, and I'm going to cut the spine from that. It's going to measure 1 1/4 by 8.5 inches, and you're still going to have a piece that is 3 3/4 by 8.5, and we are going to use that as well. I'm just pulling in a piece of white background so you can better see what I am doing. And so this is what you should have at this point. Please go back, pause, try and repeat the video as many times as you need to if you are following along with me. I hope I'm not going too fast, but yeah, for time's sake, if I'm going too fast, please pause it and go back and repeat it as many times as you need. So I'm now going to attach these 3 pieces together using that smaller piece that was left over. And not only is it going to attach these 3 pieces, but it's going to add some reinforcement to the spine of my book. Now is the time for your adhesive. You can use wet adhesive. I have here a silicone glue. You can use double-sided tape or a glue stick. If you use wet glue, you want to use enough but not too much so it's oozing out. If you're using a stick glue, you want to use as much as you need so that you get good adhesion. For time's sake, I'm using double-sided tape. I attach the tape to the 1 1/4 inch by 8.5 inch spine, and I'm gonna now center it onto the wider piece that I had left over from earlier. If you're a perfectionist, you definitely can use a ruler. There should be a 1 1/4 inch on either side. And there we have our spine in place. I'm gonna also add double-sided tape to the left or the right side of the spine, and obviously to the left side too. I'm making sure I cover the entire thing because I want to guarantee adhesion. I don't want it falling apart. I'm now going to line that up to the bottom, and I'm going to try and leave a small space between the cover and the spine itself. I believe it should be about double the width of your paper or cardstock or cardboard or whatever you use, chipboard, which in this case is probably about 1/16 of an inch. I eyeball it. It's just the easiest thing for me. I have a really hard time measuring it. Another way to think of it is probably the thickness of a ruler is a good measurement for that. I'm now repeating that same process with the other cover. And like I mentioned before, if you don't have a paper trimmer, you can definitely use a ruler to measure lines out throughout this entire tutorial, and then use your scissors to cut along your measured lines. You can also use a retractable pen or retractable pencil as a bone folder. You can also use a ruler for this. I'm just burnishing my papers in place to make sure that there is good adhesion. And now I'm just marking along that space. Again, if you don't have a bone folder, you can definitely use a ruler or a retractable pencil or pen with the point inside, of course. I like making projects that everyone can participate in. You know, I don't like having to make anybody buy any special tools or anything like that. So I'm hoping that even if you don't have certain tools, that you're still able to create this type of project for yourself, because it's fun. And like I said, I really love greeting cards, so I wanted to have some place to keep them. So once I have pressed along those little spaces, I am just giving my cover nice folds. And you want to take your time with this so that you don't crack your paper. It can happen. Now we're pulling out a 5 3/4 by 6 inch piece of cardstock. Now my cardstock that you are currently looking at is not the correct size, so just follow along with the measurements on the screen, please. From the left of your paper, you're going to score at 3/4 of an inch, and then you're going to score your paper at every 1/4 inch. You're going to stop scoring at 5 inches. Okay, I hope that makes sense. My camera did get very blurry, so some of this video was lost, but I'm scoring at every 1/4 inch between the first 3/4 of my paper and 5 inches. Okay, you should have 18 score lines on your paper, and it's important to have an even number so that you can get the proper folding technique that you're going to need for this. So you want your first fold to start with a valley. So you're going to fold your paper so you have a valley, and that's that V fold. The pattern on this piece of paper that I'm using is the bottom part of my paper. That's the bottom. And then you're going to continue this pattern. After your first valley, you want to fold a mountain, and then a valley and another valley. Then you're going to fold another mountain, and then a valley and a valley. And your pattern should look like the little images at the bottom of the screen, where your paper becomes flat and then has a little mountain, and then it's flat with another mountain, and then you should have 6 mountain folds when you're done. So you want to have both of your ends look the way that I'm holding my paper. I'm going to speed through this just a little bit, but the best way to actually understand this weird fold is to just do it. But I am going to draw a diagram for you. And again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. I'm going to do my best to answer them for you all. But yeah, this is what's going to create the hinges for your album. And we'll be attaching our pages to this, which is going to be in part 2. So here I'm just folding my mountain followed by 2 valleys, and then a mountain followed by 2 valleys until I get to the end. One thing that's really nice about an album like this is that you can create it in any theme that you like. So if you want to decorate the outside as like having a birthday theme, you can store a bunch of birthday cards in there. You can do Christmas theme. You can do all kinds of themes for your album. So this is just a diagram of what your paper should look like when you hold it on its side. It's almost like a heartbeat. And then you should have six little peaks by the time you're done. And you'll notice that on the opposite side of your peaks, you have a flat bottom. And that's important because you're going to be taping that side to the spine of your album. The height of this piece of paper doesn't entirely matter. So it could be larger than 6 inches. It could be a little bit smaller. Obviously, it shouldn't be larger than the height of your book. But it's not something that needs to be like overly strict. Like if you want to use a piece of scrap paper, as long as it's big enough to hold your pages, but small enough to fit in your book, then it should work okay. And that's just on me, letting you know you can use scrap paper. You don't have to cut into a new piece of paper, because I'm not. And I'm just about done with this folding process. Now, I said you don't need a scoreboard, but it definitely helps. You could measure these with a pencil and a ruler and then fold along your lines. But as you can see, it looks just like the diagram. Now you want to flip your paper so that you're on the bottom side. You're looking at the bottom side. And under our mountains, we are going to attach some adhesive. You want to close up those mountains from the bottom so that you just have a flat bottom and not an accordion. I'm going to put double-sided tape along the underside of each of these little mountains. You can put it on both sides of the mountain. I'm just putting it on one. I would definitely recommend double-sided tape for this just because it's easier to have control over your paper. Whereas if you use wet glue, you might have to wait, and hold it in place until it's stuck together. And then if you use a glue stick, it might get a little bit messy. So if you have double-sided tape, I would definitely recommend that. So I've taken the release paper off of all of my double-sided tape. Please excuse the temperament of my camera. It tends to get blurry every now and then. I don't know why, but I am not sure how to fix that. So my apologies. So here I am just sticking together all of those little mountains, trying to make sure that the bottom folds are all lined up. And you definitely want to press them nicely. Just make sure that they are all nice and closed up. And by the time you're done, you should have something that looks like this. You can grab a bone folder or the handle of your scissors or a pen and just press this down really well. You can also flip it over and do the same. And now I'm just showing you where I'm going to be placing this. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put adhesive all over the back. I'm going to cover the entire back with double-sided tape. Now I'm removing my release paper and I'm going to very carefully attach that to my spine. This is on the inside of the album. You want to line up each of your ends to the cover and that little gap that you have between your cover and your spine. And then just keep all of those little mountains that have been glued together in the center where your spine is. I'm just kind of adjusting, making sure that before I permanently press everything down, that it's all nicely lined up. And I've pressed it all down, and this is what it looks like now. And this is the inside of the album. Next, we're going to work on decorating our cover. I'm just flexing the folds of the cover just to, give it some reinforcement and some flexibility now that I've adhered some more paper to it. So my cover is going to be 1 inch taller than the book. And that's because I want it to stick out at the top and the bottom. And here I'm measuring from the cover of the spine to the rest of the cover, to the edge of the cover. And I'm cutting my paper down to 5.5 and 12 inches. I mean, not 5.5 and 12 inches. That's wrong. I cut it down to 5.5 by 9. Because my height is 8.5. So 5.5 by 9.5. I'm sorry, guys. So your pattern paper is going to be 5.5 by 9.5. That's if you're following the same measurements that I am. If your cards are smaller or bigger, you may make adjustments as needed. I'm now covering the entire front cover with double-sided tape, and I'm sticking down a ribbon before I put my pattern paper down. This is optional. You don't need to put ribbon if you prefer leaving it without the closure, or you can use some other type of closure of preference if you want to use make some holes and tie something through the holes, or whatever other way you want to tie it. It's all up to you. This is just how I chose to close my album. I'm now putting my cover. I'm trying to make sure that I have some paper at the top and the bottom hanging off of my cover. And now I flip it over, so I have about 1/2 inch at the top hanging off, and the bottom and the side. Now I'm going to cut my cardstock around the ribbon, because obviously I can't fold it over. So I'm just going to cut that little piece out. It's just a small rectangle. I'm trying not to cut into my actual ribbon. You could do this before. I didn't think to do it before, so I didn't. But it works out just fine. So before I actually trim it off, I want to fold over all of my other pieces and attach them to the inside of the cover, just to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. I don't know if I attach it, but I definitely fold it over so that it's not in the way and I'm not cutting anything else by accident. I'm now cutting the corners, leaving a tiny bit left. And I'm just flexing the paper again so that it'll fold easier when it's time to actually glue it in place. Or in my case, tape it in place. So I'm getting the paper out of the way, I'm getting the ribbon out of the way, and now I'm just going to snip that little rectangle right off. So there's my cover. I'm going to do the same thing to the back. You could pick a different pattern for the back. I do the same one. And you can also label the front of your album. I don't do that in the end. I might though. You could even add dates if you wanted to store cards just from a specific time period. You could do that as well. You don't even have to store greeting cards in here. You can store whatever you would like to put in here. You can put albums. You can put photos or mementos. Or you can make one of these and gift them to someone. I think this would make a really cute gift to someone. And once I've added my double-sided tape to all of the sides, I'll remove my release paper. And I like to, when I add covers, I like to start with the top and bottom, and then I do the sides. Whatever you do to one side, you want to just repeat it on the other side so it has a uniformed look. So if you do the top and bottom on this cover first, then you want to do that on the other cover as well. And again, I'm so sorry about the blurriness. It's really obnoxious, but I don't know how to fix it. So yeah, this is me fighting with my camera. But there's my front cover, or one of them. I guess I haven't decided if it's the front or the back yet. There's still time to figure that out. I'm now going to cover the other side with double-sided tape. I would also recommend double-sided tape for this. You could probably use a glue stick. I would be afraid of using wet glue only because I wouldn't want it to warp your paper, which can happen. The silicone glue that I've been using lately actually does not warp my paper, but you know, I wouldn't say run out and get some silicone glue. I would say use what you have on hand. And if that's what you have like white glue, you can definitely do it. You know, you might want to put your cover someplace flat for a little bit as it dries up so that it doesn't warp. Now I'm just lining up my ribbon to make sure it's in the same place on the other cover. Almost feels like deja vu. So I'm repeating the exact same thing. And again, I'm putting double-sided tape over it just to make sure that it's well it's going to be in there like really nice. It's not going anywhere. And now that I've got all that tape in place, I'm going to put my other piece of pattern paper. I guess the positive of both sides being the same pattern is I only need it to cut into one piece of paper. Those familiar with my channel know how frugal I am with paper. I don't throw any of it out away. I like to use all of my scraps. I find different things to do with them. Yeah, I don't think I ever have to buy paper again. Maybe. I will, but I don't think I need to. So I'm going to press that down really nicely. And here I am just getting the flaps in place, burnishing them really well. And just like before, I'm doing the top and bottom first. That's preferential. You could do the sides first, whatever you want to do. Pressing that down again. I already cut my little rectangle from behind my ribbon. And that's our cover. Isn't that cute? Now we're gonna decorate the inside cover. Now, if you wanted to add pockets to the inside, you could do that. I don't do that with this, but obviously you can. I'm using another, well, this was a 12 by 12 paper. I think I punched some circles out of it. So I guess technically it's a piece of scrap, but I'm marking with a pencil. I think I put a measurement up on the screen anyway, but yeah, I didn't actually measure it with a ruler. I just marked off where I wanted to cut my paper. And I'm adding adhesive to the back of that, and then I'm gonna line it up. I leave a very small border. And I'm taking my time with this because I want to make sure that I don't put it on there crooked. And I'm going to press that down really well. And again, I'm doing that to the other side. And that's our little album. I did have some paper left after cutting the pieces for the inside of the cover. And so I grabbed this piece and I cut a strip from it. And I decided to add it to my spine. And yes, I'm really happy that it measures. It's like perfect. Because I didn't plan for it. So it was nice that I saw that and it fit really well. I'm going to add my double-sided tape, and I'm just wrapping it around the spine and then back around. And once again, now if you guys try this out, if anybody out there is doing this with me, and I hope you are, I would love to see photos. I do have a Facebook group. I will leave the link in the description. If you create this, I would absolutely love to see your album. That would be really, really awesome. So yeah, it is at CityGal Papeterie on Facebook. Here I just removed some of the release paper at the top. I'm putting down my paper. I'm just taking it really slow just because I want it to be really straight. But yeah, it would be lovely to see your creations if you decide to recreate this, or if you make any alterations to it. I would love to see that. Your design and how you end up using it, that would be great. So I'm putting my strip along the spine. There, it's blurry again. And I just want to make sure it's nice and straight. And I wish I had kind of measured this out beforehand, because it was, look, just the tiniest bit too long. So I end up having to cut a little bit off. But that worked out pretty nicely. And so there it is. I hope you guys join me in part 2, and I will show you how to make the pockets for the inside where you can fit your greeting cards. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it didn't go too quickly, but obviously it's YouTube. You can go back and forth as many times as you need to. And I'll see you guys next time.